Hey guys, welcome to a brand new mixing tutorial. Let's take a look at this cover of Viscera by Veil of Maya. I'll be showing you cool tones. I'll also be showing you how I fake having a whammy, and I programmed the whammy in and tons of epic production. So that's gonna be fun. Let us go. Let me pick a cool part. Yeah, let's start with the verse. So, Master Bus plugins are going pretty heavy on this one, and I'll explain them at the end as usual, and just leave the loudness one. Already sounds a bit different, but that's how I mixed it. Drums. So this drum sound is my most recent drum sound, and it's King Lake Drums by Lance Prince. So the dude from Australia who mixes all your favorite heavy hitters, he has drums, and I really have been enjoying these drums. And the full drum mix that I did for this plugin is in the Alpha Wolf Sub-Zero mixing tutorial. So that's where you can go to see all the plugins that comprise this drum sound. I'm not having to repeat myself because I know a few of you have already watched it. There's a key difference, which is the snare I was running for Alpha Wolf was the Tama bell brass in the mid tuning. It's the stock snare and one of the more powerful ones, but this song I wanted a beefier one, and I switched to the pork pie and on the low tuning. Very distinct sounds. So let's A/B those. Pork pie in the low tuning fit this track a little bit better because it's a little bit more metal, and the low tuning really did good. I would love to one day hear Veil of Maya with a very high tune snare. Check out how cool this sounds. Imagine the beat blasts too. Snares can make so much, man. It's like a different band where you just switch the snare tuning, not even the snare. So that's what I used. Very cool. Again, you can check out the Alpha Wolf Sub-Zero mixing tutorial. Just go to Patreon and type it out on the search, and you can see all the plugins I used to make this awesome drum sound with this epic library. Bass. Bass is programmed. So we have our Gin bass. This guy, fucking standard schmandard, super cool. I like to use it on clean DI mode and run it through my own processing, which is pretty complicated for this sound. You guys might have already seen something close to this sound. So I like to split it into two tracks, one for the lows, one for the highs, and mix them together in a bus. So first the low track, the easier one. That's one plugin, literally, which is a filter at 250 so that you can cut all the highs. The rest is stuff to enhance the low end, so a little bit of our bass gives it some sub at 70. And the Oxford Inflator, I'll be honest, I don't think this guy is doing barely anything. It's giving it a few more harmonics in this upper low end instead. Our bass does this lower low end, and Inflator does this higher high end, but honestly could turn up the volume, maybe get the similar effect. Just experimenting. This is what is important. And then for this one, you're gonna do, for the highs, you're gonna do the inverse, and you're gonna cut all the low end out. But first, a few plugins. Or else you'd get just this. I like to distort it with Saturn, pick a very specific frequency range in the mids, which here is like 800 to 2K. and that's like Distortion Pedal City, and then try to put it into a real amp simulator. It quite changes the sound. Of course, it makes it tons louder, but it also gives it a little bit of a curve on the distortion. That is really cool. Then you fix the excessive high end and some whistles. It's not very hard. Together, you start getting this, which is already a cool sound. And then we blend them together. And for me, it's about taming the high track and making sure it interacts with the low track as if it was like a real player. When you have high end from the pick, you have a little bit less low end. That comes from like compressing them together and stuff. So this is the hero that's taming the high track and saturating the low track with proprietary signal processing on the CornF plugin. It's basically just that and the insufferable mid-range filter getting rid of 4K. Very, very big notch at 4K. Very, very cool. EQ binding them together. Again, similar stuff. These subs are useless and these highs are a matter of taste. And then just get the mid-range right, because it's something you're going to do with the guitars. If I remove those three, you'll probably hear the bass through the guitars. You hear it a little bit more. And you might want that, but when it's program bass, I usually don't want that, because you can tell that it's fake bass. So I very strategically go to the somewhere in the high mid-range and cut that. Limiter, this is to keep the bass very consistent. Get a little bit of reduction and pick your volume. And then you can tell what this guy does to the low end. After all this processing, you might be killing some low end with compression, and this guy just like generates it back in a weird way. Very big. But it's also a matter of taste whether you want that low end or not. So that is the bass tone. Let's talk guitars. Oops, okay. Guitars are very simple. There's only 3 plugins. So today's tone of choice is the SS11X. You guys know I love this boy. I just put it up on the red channel and turn on the overdrive, and that's default, and I love it. I switched to the second cab, which is a little bit sharper. So, and turn down the gain a little bit. So I can literally make this from scratch. Volume 8, red channel, a little bit down on the gain, turn on the overdrive pedal, second cab. Oh, and stereo, of course. That's the tone. That was how easy it was. Okay, what can we say? A little bit beefy on the palm mute parts. You know what we use to take care of that. We use dynamic EQ. So I selected the part where it was most flagrant. Today it was about 200. It was a little bit higher, interestingly. Not sure why. And this 100 one is very strategic. It's for the scratches. For some reason, when I do these scratches at the end, they're very present in the low end. So that's all they're there for. This is the main palm mute control guy. And for this tone to be more aggressive, I boosted the 2.5K area very, very strongly. Gives the tone some bite. And compressing a little bit. Just a foolproof compressor. Make sure that everything is nice and leveled and at the same volume. Also helps compress the palm mutes a little bit. Nice. Let's talk lo-fi guitars. There's two different pairs of lo-fi guitars today. This is the main one, and it's actually very lo-fied. So there's SS11X, same tone. We run it through Pixelator at like 25% mix. So very cool, giving us this pixelated sample divided effect. If you blend it in, it kind of destroys the high end. And this guy also destroys the high end. Super lo-fi secret weapon. King's microphones. And then, yeah, adjust with EQ. Just got rid of highs and lows, so that it's extra lo-fi. Sounds very cool. And then there's this pair, which is for the scratchy edits. So it's the same tone as the rhythms into King's microphones, but King's microphones is blended this time. So there's 33% of the real signal, which gives us some low end instead of somewhere in the middle of those. You get the dirtiness of this plus the low end of the original. And yeah, nothing to write home about here. Yeah, boy. Love that right part. Okay, let's talk production. There's a fucking stupid piano that appears twice to play two notes. That's literally my addictive keys into little plate. Not even gonna talk about this. Boring. What's cool is that I made a bass synth patch that really matches the original. This one I'm fucking proud of. Bro, that's the original. This is mine. You could barely tell them apart. So that's a big success. Very simple. I grabbed a saw wave shape and a sub 1 octave below. Very important. And then that's no filter. An envelope for some decay. Where is it? What? Oh yeah, a little bit of release on the envelope. So when you release the note, it bleeds out. And then I made a filter envelope that has a little pointiness. That's it. Blend that with some chorus on the unison. Very important too. Mono. Stereo. It was so easy and I got it. First try. So that's a cool synth I made and I'm proud of. And it appears in the... That was very cool. Here's a low ambience. I just made it lower. Whatever. My arpeggiator. Yeah, let's go over the break. Very cool sound. So I grabbed a lead in Expand called Light Perky Lead, which is very appropriate. And I turn on the arpeggiator on the up and down mode. So you put the chord in there and it just... Very, very cool. Oh, excuse me. Trying to wake up earlier. I'll be phase shifted in no time. Turn down the annoying high end and reverbed out. Super, super cool. Then I found this lush synth that really helped, which I actually originally found for this part. So, artificially enhanced is the name of the guy, and if you put like 3 octaves on it, it's gonna sound like this big ass from the original. So that's cool. All I had to do was EQ it. The sound is pretty cool from Expand. Just remove a ton of low end, actually. Yeah, that's too heavy. Yeah. And in this part, I did these chords and I duplicated them. With a very simple saw patch. So it's the stock sound in Serum, filter some highs away, and the key is that you make a unison so that it sounds like it's double tracked and stereoed instead of monoed. Just like guitars. And that really helps. Makes the chords beefier and sounds very natural. Filter is key though. This is just like an EQ filter. Cool. There's a bass drop. Oh, this EQ is doing nothing. It's literally just a triangle wave bass drop. You can see here it's a triangle wave because it has some harmonics. And you can see them up there. Makes it cut through because it's such a low note. Still soft. Impact explosion with a little bit of softening on these highs. Yeah. And this spooky little ambience. Is this pitched? Yeah, this is pitched up. This is the original sample. Very spooky. Pitched it up. And then I disguised the artifacts with reverb. Tons of reverb. This really pulls everything together. Absolutely essential. Here too. Really tying everything together. And this is just a track with the amp so that I can play through it because I haven't shot the video yet for this song. All right, now mastering. This song is like very aggressively EQ. It has very aggressive EQ spectrum. And my mix is a little bit warmer, a little bit more focused on the notes instead of like pure aggression, which is more my style. So I tried to get closer to the original aggression in the mastering. First step was Gullfoss, very heavy. I usually like to go sweeter on Gullfoss. Gullfoss tries to recover the frequencies it thinks sounds better about your mix using an algorithm that's comparable to human hearing, where you increase the bass and the highs and tame the mids, but not in a static, smiley way. It's in the dynamic way that reacts to your music. The reason I usually don't use this too strongly is because it boosts the highs a lot. But that's what I liked today. This is the night and day shift, and these are also very welcome adjustments. So there's Golfos. For compression, which I usually do after, I picked this very clean compressor. I could have used something that was more dirty, but this song, when you have something this busy, you don't want a compressor with lots of saturation and pumping. You want something clean. So I went easier on the attack, a little bit slower so that it's not pumping, and release auto is also the more natural one. But I did go from 2 ratio to 4 ratio. For some reason, 4 sounded, I mean, not for some reason, it makes sense. It sounds a bit more aggressive, and 2 sounded a bit more soft, and I did want the more aggressive version. If you go back and hear it, turning it on kind of glues the snare with the mix. Exactly what we want. And then I went back to an old friend that used to make my mixes very aggressive. And that's a multiband boy. So this guy, imagine Golfos that boosts the good stuff. This guy doesn't boost, it cuts, but it cuts like it with a very aggressive EQ curve. Because if it's multiband, so it compresses EQ bands differently. And when you just leave it flat, it tends to go cut the mids first and the low mids first. So it leaves the super highs very open and the bass kind of controlled. And I'll overdo it and you'll see. If you ignore the volume change there, you can really hear what it's doing. Oh no, can I not Control Z that? Please. Okay, so what am I control? Okay, it's been Control Z'd, but no shit. This thing ever happens to you? I hate that. I changed the threshold on each one so that each is kind of affected equally, but leave that bias of the mids. Again, interesting plugin. And then kind of glue it all together with tape. I think I've learned that I need to use this guy harder. And I've learned that A is the cleanest, B is the fluffiest in the low end, and C has the vintage cut the super lows and cut the super highs off lo-fi vibe. And I wanted a bit of lo-fiing here because all that boosting in the low end and highs have it a little bit cut and then saturated on the mids. Makes this better to listen to on like phones, smaller speakers. Again, if you A/B, even with the amount at 5 when I used to do 2, it's pretty subtle. I found that we can look at it in an EQ and it shows it. Look at the lows. And actually now after the mastering limiter, you can tell way more how much is controlling the kick sub. That is very interesting. And the super highs, now let's look at those. I want you guys to really, because I've done a bad job of explaining what this does, because I've honestly never really found out. Look at it. You can see that guy go down, but to be fair, that's above 20K, so I don't even know what the purpose is. And anyways, like, tape, still learning. And the loudness guy is of course the more aggressive one I have, which is Flatline by Submission Audio. Shape just below 100, because 100 is hard clipping and it's literally, you're not using the money that you spent on the plugin. And yeah, just honestly, the snare is so loud that I can just dig hard and only cut the snare. That's basically what's happening here. I could have possibly just gone harder. I'll be honest with you, I might print the mix a little bit louder, to be fair. That didn't sound like 1 dB extra, didn't sound too bad. So yeah, I think I'm going to do that right now. Thank you guys so much for supporting, watching the mixing tutorials. I really hope this teaches you. Leave any comments, questions down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.